Let's do this. Welcome to the 49-Yard Dash, a podcast on your San Francisco 49ers, hosted by myself, Stephen Ellis, and joined now and weekly by my good friend, Josh LaFond, who you can also find at gbmwolverine.com, covering Michigan football. If we happen to have any other weirdos who are 49ers fans and Michigan fans. He writes good stuff, though, so it's worth checking out. But Josh, how's it going, man?
Dude, doing good. Just kind of living the dream, waiting for my next stimulus check. Haven't been working in the last 2 or 3 years. Prior to that, I was just selling vids online. Now here I am waiting for Joe Biden to cut me a stimulus check. So just kind of waiting for the next one, man. I've got a couple kids in Guatemala, but just trying to see if I can claim them or not.
There you go, man. There you go. Very good.
Gotta make an honest living, right?
Heck yeah. This is the first bonus episode for us. We're mainly a 49ers podcast, of course, and in all of our official episodes, that's what we're doing. But we're also going to jump on here occasionally, not as consistently, and just, talk about whatever, because we're also just NFL fans in general. And me personally, I've been a big time draft guy the past few years. I've really dove deep into drafting, scouting. For years, I was a USC fan, and still, if I'm going to pick a team, I still pick USC, and I root for them. But my true love as far as college football now is really scouting players. I'm a player guy. And, last year, there was a lot of guys that I liked. Me and you both really looked forward to this past draft with the Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance one. I was a Trey Lance guy. I know when the 49ers first traded up to 3, you thought it might be for Zach Wilson at first, which I know you were excited
so I texted
for.
you.
Yeah,
I texted you. I said Zach Wilson, number 3, man. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then it came out that the Jets, their guy was Zach Wilson, because we kind of thought it might be Justin Fields.
Yeah, no, that's what it had been for the last 2 years.
Yeah,
it was gonna be Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields. So it was like, hey, natural fit. Give us the BYU quarterback 2.0, Steve Young. The little Storm and Mormon with the headband this time.
Heck yeah, that's right. Yeah. And when you first texted me that, I hadn't heard anything about it, so I thought, oh, okay, maybe Zach Wilson is their quarterback of the future. I watched him some, and but once I started really watching more of Trey Lance, man, I fell in love, honestly.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah,
it was a sucker, man.
Yeah, me too. And he's the guy I ended up wanting. So when it was rumored that the Jets, Zach Wilson was their guy, like, man, it might be Trey Lance. And then there was, Kyle's guy has to be Mac Jones, and I was ready to jump off a bridge.
I was ready to shoot myself in the face with the Red Ryder BB gun, man. Just a slow death, 15 times in the back of the head. Absolutely. I'm with you on that, brother.
Yeah. When I knew that the first 2 picks were going to be Lawrence and Wilson, obviously the guy I wanted was Lance, but I actually said I'm okay with Fields too. I know you are not a Fields guy at all.
Yeah.
I was just don't draft Mac Jones. That was me. Don't draft Mac Jones.
Yeah.
You were don't draft Mac Jones or Justin Fields.
Yeah, I was take anybody other than that. I was take, if you're not going to take Trey Lance, take a position player, take anybody but Mac Jones, Justin Fields.
Just go ahead and take Kyle Pitts.
And the words of Michael Scott, for any reason, for whatsoever, do not take, I'm going to butcher this quote, but do not take Mac Jones or Justin Fields there. Just do not take him. Just do not take him, man.
Me and you have talked about it, but explain
and we need to educate these guys on it.
Yeah, explain why you're not a Justin Fields guy.
Yeah, so Justin Fields, he's not a natural passer. This is a Michigan fan, buzz cut. I just shaved my head in the garage earlier. I'm not a skinhead, but I am an idiot. So wearing a Michigan hat, I am biased. But I was higher on Dwayne Haskins than I was on Justin Fields. Justin Fields presents you with a better running option, obviously, than Dwayne Haskins did. He does remind me of kind of a poor man's Jalen Hurts, and that's that's not what you're looking for when you're drafting a guy, potentially in the top 10, top 2, as he was projected for his whole collegiate career. But kind of how Justin Fields was projected, he was definitely a projected top 10 guy. Obviously, he fell out of the top 10 to Chicago, but just not high on him. He's not a natural passer. You can kind of see it. And you and I talked about this. There was always something that I couldn't pinpoint with Justin Fields, but he looked off. And the conclusion I came to is he just did not look comfortable. You can tell he's not processing his reads. You can tell he's doing specifically what Ryan Day asked him to do. And we've seen that evidence so far in his first start in the NFL. Obviously, it sucks behind Chicago's lack of an offensive line, but he still threw for under 70 yards, man.
Yeah. They had one net passing yard.
Yeah, one net passing yard. If you look if you actually take, not looking at ESPN's box score, but you take the legitimate NFL statistics, like you said, one net passing yard, because sack yards are taken away from that. Obviously, the Bears are not in a position to utilize him properly, but there's a lot of concerns about Justin Fields. He's got a long windup. He doesn't look natural in the pocket. Long windups are fine. Even Jimmy Garoppolo, even though a lot of times he gets the ball out quick, when he is taking a deep shot, he does have kind of a long windup. A lot of these quarterbacks do. But it's just something about Justin Fields when you watch him compared to guys like Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, a lot of these other guys, even Kyle Trask, who I'm not a fan of. There's something off about his game. And when you look at it, study the tape, look at his Big Ten competition, or his Big Ten tape rather, when he was playing at Ohio State, playing now in the NFL with the Chicago Bears, there's just something off about him. And what's off about him is he's just not comfortable as a quarterback. He's an athlete playing quarterback, and that's really the issue with Justin Fields, in my opinion.
I think that he has a lot of really nice tools to work with. Obviously, he's big, he's strong. Obviously, he's super fast. Dude, what, he ran a 4.44 or 5? Was that something like that?
Yeah,
his 40 time was fantastic.
Sub 4.5.
Yeah,
sub 4.5.
That's what I was thinking. And as far as just standing there and throwing the ball, I think he's an accurate passer. I know me and you have talked about it. You think his mid-level passing has some big question marks.
Yeah.
What I wonder sometimes, though, is I totally agree. One of my big question marks, I was higher on him than you, and at this point probably still am, even though I'm not crazy high on him. I definitely agree that he did exactly what Ryan Day asked him to do, and I don't think he did much processing out of it. But I also thought, I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo does a lot of that processing outside of what Kyle Shanahan did. So what I wondered was, could he not be put in Jimmy Garoppolo's shoes and just deliver the ball a little more accurately, but also have his legs as a threat? That's what I wondered.
And that's a fair point, man. The issue with that is, if the offense under Kyle Shanahan is truly going to be the most overstated term in football, read option RPO. If it truly is going to be an RPO offense, which read pass option, you're reading the defender, quarterback keep, handoff. You're passing because you're reading that the defender is going to crash. You're going to pass, or the option of you're going to hand off to the running back, or you're going to keep it and make something happen with your feet. If that's the offense you're going to run exclusively, then maybe Justin Fields is your guy. But the thing that Jimmy Garoppolo gives with you is, like I just said a minute ago, he does have a long windup on his deep passes, but what he doesn't have is a long windup on his intermediate level, short level passes, and Justin Fields does. He's like a shortstop trying to wind up and turn a double play. And that can't work in the NFL. You got to get the ball out quick. If it's in the short, if it's in the short level, 10 yards in, intermediate level, 10 to 20, or, a deep pass, 20 plus, you got to get the ball out quick. You can't have a long windup. And that's the thing. But if you are going to run this RPO style collegiate offense, like Ryan Day ran at Ohio State, with Justin Fields and Dwayne Haskins, and hey, maybe Justin Fields is your quarterback. But as far as what we've seen from Kyle Shanahan, that's not it. And what we've seen from Matt Nagy and the Chicago Bears, that's not it. So Justin Fields is a fine collegiate quarterback, in my opinion, but whether or not he can process these NFL defensive schemes, whether or not he can process these reads on his own without the help of the coaching staff, that remains to be seen, to be honest with you. And that's kind of my biggest concern with him as far as long-term projection.
And I will say, too, the offensive line didn't help him out last week against Cleveland, but
not one bit.
Even at Ohio State, the dude held onto the ball way too long a lot of the time. But yeah, it'll be interesting, and he's got question marks, and so does Chicago. All right, the guy that everybody knew was going first overall, Trevor Lawrence, has had his ups and downs for sure. It's interesting. I have the stats here. So far, he's averaging 208 yards per game, 218, sorry, 6 total touchdowns, 9 total turnovers. Not so hot so far. Obviously, he is another guy who's not in a great situation. But I will say, DJ Chark got hurt and he's out for the year. But, man, to start the year, Chark, Chenault, and Marvin Jones Jr., along with James Robinson, is not a bad cast of weapons.
That's one of the better trios in the AFC. I'm not trying to cut you off, Steve, but that's one of the better trios in the AFC. What are you doing?
Again, Chark got hurt, so that stunk. But still, and they just traded for Dan Arnold, who I'll be sad we can't. I can't say Darnold to Arnold anymore, but it's part of it.
Yeah.
But he's been very up and down.
No, and I don't know if you were going to expound on that or not, but I'll go on ahead and do it. It's the thing with Lawrence is when he was a freshman, I can remember it clear as day when they beat Alabama in the national championship. Trevor Lawrence was anointed at that point as the next Peyton Manning, as the next Tom Brady of the NFL. And unfortunately, he never built on that. If it wasn't in a program like Clemson, although they're struggling this year here in the year of our Lord 2021, they're 2-2. But, before that, they were Clemson. They're one of the best programs in the country, one of the top 5 programs in the country, turning out 5-star talent left and right. We've seen that obviously evidenced in the NFL and all these things as far as with the picks that they've had, at the skill positions, defensive players, and all these things. But with Trevor Lawrence, really after his freshman year, there was a lot of concerns. They've had some struggles. It was back-to-back years with Syracuse in his sophomore and junior year. It's freaking Syracuse. Trevor Lawrence did not show up. He got hurt in one of those games, but still did not show up in those out-of-conference games. He really did struggle, even against Troy here in Alabama in our home state. Trevor Lawrence struggled against freaking Troy, man. He's got a lot of issues. He's a prototypical, if you were going to build a NCAA 14 road to dynasty player, high school prototype, you're going to go in Madden and build a my player mode. You'll build Trevor Lawrence with
normal hair.
You're going to build Trevor Lawrence with normal hair. You're going to give him a United States Marine Corps haircut. Gotta butcher that. But you're going to give him, all the tools that he's got. But there's just something off about him. It's the same thing with Justin Fields we talked about. You look at him and it's like, he should be better than what he is. There's something off about this guy. And what's off about Trevor Lawrence is he's got all the tools, but you read some of these comments by his uncle and his dad saying that, if he doesn't win the Super Bowl in his career, he's not going to care.
I didn't like that.
No, you shouldn't
like that.
If you're a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, you should be showing up at this guy's house and saying, "What the crap, dude?" You should be showing up with a case of Natty Light and throwing them at him. But it's just the thing with Trevor Lawrence, like he should be better than what he is, and obviously he's a rookie. Obviously, we're only a couple games into the season. Yeah, it's 4 games into the season, man.
We don't know what any of these guys are yet, but
no, we don't. But you can get some early indicators on him, and the early indications on Trevor Lawrence is he's not the next superstar. people compare him to Peyton Manning. It kind of cracks me up. I don't have the stats in front of me, but Peyton Manning was not great as a rookie. He
Peyton
wasn't.
Manning's comparison doesn't really make any sense.
It doesn't.
Even
because
play
what
style
Peyton Manning
wise.
was exactly. Because what Peyton Manning was as a rookie was carrying a horrible Indianapolis Colts team to a respectable record. Trevor Lawrence is not going to do that. They're 0-4.
Yeah.
They're 0-4. Urban Meyer looked like he was going to vomit on the sideline. Looked like he had
Last night,
Ebola.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last night was definitely his best game, I thought. And it's not like his statistics didn't blow you away. But he did make throws. Even on third and fourth down, he made good throws. I thought he played well, but
let's even throw the statistics aside. It's just looking at him.
Yeah.
He's not what we expected. He is somebody that you would draft in the first round if you were a quarterback needy team. What he is not to date, 4 games into the season, is a franchise changing quarterback.
Yeah.
He is not. Yeah. He is not your Tom Brady. He is not your Peyton Manning. He is not even your Aaron Rodgers, your Brett Favre. He's not that kind of guy that can elevate the rest of your team when you don't have the talent. He
or
has
even Andrew Luck.
No, not even Andrew Luck. That's a great point,
yeah.
Steve. You think about Andrew Luck, Robert Griffin Robert Griffin III of that draft. Obviously RG3 is not in the league anymore, neither is Andrew Luck, but those guys elevated their teams to playoff contention as rookies, and their coaching staff did a good job of putting him in a position to succeed. The issue right now you see with Trevor Lawrence is he's not those guys from a talent perspective. And the thing that's exasperating the issue with him is Urban Meyer, as we talked about over and over again, is not putting him in a position to succeed. And along with the rest of that coaching staff. So you've got a guy who's not as talented as he was supposed to be, and a coaching staff who's not putting him in a position to take advantage of all his positive qualities.
Yeah. It's true, man. We'll see. Hey, another one. Again, it's only 4 games in, and he's got time to turn it around. But thus far, even comparing him to the last guy who we viewed as the best prospect since Andrew Luck, he hasn't met up to that standards. Who was dealing with supporting cast just as bad, but with worse weapons, I would say.
Yeah, it's just the Colts are a more recognizable franchise. If the Colts were the Houston Texans with the same roster with Andrew Luck, it would be a much more comparable proposition. And I don't know how you're going to segue this, but the point I would like to make is that Trevor Lawrence, the separation that was supposed to be between Trevor Lawrence and the rest of these guys, right? It's not there. There's a case to be made. There's a case to be made that your top 5 of Trevor Lawrence, and not in any particular order, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Trey Lance, and Justin Fields, that there's not much distinguishing them.
No, there's not.
It was supposed to be a huge gap, and we're just not seeing that right now between any of these guys right now. Between playing time for guys like Trey Lance and then performance for guys like Trevor Lawrence, Mac Jones, and Zach Wilson, it's not as distinguishable as it was allegedly supposed to be.
Yeah, it's very true, man. Phew. Next guy that was drafted. You love this guy, it's been rough so far, but it's the Jets. But Zach Wilson and the Jets, and it's not all on him, but so far they have been completely and utterly awful.
They have been disgusting.
Like horrible.
Yeah, no, they've been the JETS, Jets. I actually knew a good friend of mine from actually Queens, New York, from Hollis, New York, back where the famous rap group, the original gangster, the OG rap group Run DMC was founded up in Hollis, New York. Over in Queens, he's a diehard Jets fan, but and he's actually, his profession is he's a doorman in Brooklyn. And every time these $1 million, $1 billion guests walk into this apartment complex where he's a doorman at, they say JETS, suck, and that's the truth. Instead of Jets, it's suck.
Oh, it's messed up.
It's been like that for years, and that's the truth. I watched I'm not a big fan of TikTok, but I was on TikTok the other day before I deleted it for the 100th time. And, you watch some of these passes. There was a guy that made a video of Zach Wilson's 4 interceptions here, not last week, but the week before last, second game of the year. And all 4 of the passes were not his fault. They were due to to his receivers not catching the ball or being in position to catch it. One of the passes I remember explicitly hit the guy right in the numbers, deflected off them, bounced over the wide receiver's head to the safety. And that's the kind of stuff you're seeing in New York. And when you've got a gunslinger like Zach Wilson, he needs to be in a position to succeed. Like we talked about at the outset, I thought he'd be a great fit for San Francisco, being an athletic kind of dynamic gunslinger guy, getting the ball out quick, kind of being this kind of cocky guy with some moxie. I thought he'd be perfect for Kyle Shanahan. Unfortunately, he went number 2 instead of number 3. But it's the worst situation he could be in, to be honest with you, even over Jacksonville. The Jets don't have a lot of weapons. They have no offensive line. And what they're doing is exasperating all his issues. And I know I've said that word a lot, but they are exasperating his issues instead of neutralizing them, because they don't have anything else. They don't have an offensive line. Mekhi Becton, their previous first-round pick at tackle, he's hurt. They don't have any offensive line outside of him. They don't have any weapons outside of Zach Wilson. It's just a serious issue that they got right now, is they're forcing it all on their rookie quarterback. And it's kind of the same thing we saw with Sam Darnold way back when, is you're forcing this rookie quarterback to be your entire team, not your entire offense, but your entire team. Now, Zach Wilson does create a little bit more, in my opinion, than Sam Darnold does. But as far as with his legs and with his arm, kind of being a little bit more creative. But even with that, you see these several interceptions. It's like, you got to be kidding me, man. You just spent this number 2 overall pick on a guy and you're giving him nothing. You could have kept Sam Darnold and been in the same position that you're in now. And to say you waste that on a guy and you're probably going to ruin his career because of it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, if they, even me as a Sam Darnold fan, which real quick, interrupt myself, I just realized
go for it.
Zach Wilson is 1 day older than me. Just
yeah,
a funny
that's
coincidence.
A scary thought, man.
Just a funny coincidence, but obviously, yeah, that's right. Yeah, definitely. Sam Darnold, I've seen a lot of people say, "Oh, well, the Jets shouldn't have traded Sam Darnold." Even me as a Sam Darnold fan, if he was on this Jets team, he would not be successful right now.
No, he wouldn't.
You cannot succeed in situations like this. Even though I like the weapons that Wilson has better than the weapons that Darnold had, still, the offensive line is awful. It's a brand new coaching staff with a defensive coach. But it was never this bad with Sam Darnold as a Sam Darnold defender. I'm never going to root for anybody to fail, even though Zach Wilson's middle name is Capono. That makes me tempted to want him to fail. So I'm not going to root for the kid like I'm older. I'm not going to root for the guy to fail.
But, you're a day older, Steve.
Yeah, he's a day older.
He's a day older. God, that could.
And I just called him kid. But I'm not going to root for him to fail.
Shut the heck up.
But as a Sam Darnold fan, it's just nice to see that everybody has plain evidence you cannot succeed in a situation like this. And this is what Sam Darnold had for 3 years.
Yeah, no, and you're right, man. The issue is, would you rather have permanently ruined Sam Darnold's career by holding on to him? Or would you rather draft a quarterback at 2 and ruin his career forever? Because the issue right now is this team is 3-4 years away from being productive. And we're not talking about free agent signs. We're talking about this year. So let's say they had kept Sam Darnold. Who do you take at number 2? Do you take a guy like Micah Parsons, Patrick Surtain, Penei Sewell, an instant impact guy? Who do you take at that number 2 spot?
I say you trade back.
Yeah. And so in theory, that's fine. But we know the Jets, they probably wouldn't have. They would have reached for a guy. So what do you do? This is a 3 to 4 year rebuild despite the quarterback position. So what you're picking at this point is, hey, do we keep Sam Darnold for 3 to 4 years, suck for that entire time? We draft Micah Parsons, Patrick Surtain, Rashawn Slater, Penei Sewell, one of these guys, here in the top 5. They drafted number 2. Do we take one of the guys this year, or do we drop Sam Darnold, pick Zach Wilson number 2, and hope for the love of God that we do not ruin his career within 5 years, because we think he is going to be better than a potential quarterback prospect within the same amount of time, and then we build the team around him? That's what you're betting on. You're betting on building a team around a guy like Zach Wilson, or you're betting building the team and then putting a quarterback in place to lead that team. And we'll see if this works out for him or not. But it's a situation where it's like, man, do you ruin Sam Darnold's career like you could have, and like you're probably going to ruin Zach Wilson's? Or do you, go with the guy and Zach Wilson and hope for the love of God that you're contending for a wild card spot before his contract comes up?
Again, speaking as the biggest Sam Darnold fan out there and the biggest defendant of him over the last 3 years, trading Sam Darnold was the correct move for the Jets. Not only because moving on, fresh start stuff, but you have to pay Sam Darnold in a couple of years. And Carolina, unfortunately, even if Sam Darnold is their franchise quarterback, they're going to have to pay him in a couple of years here if he is the franchise guy. So they're not. It's not like drafting a quarterback with what Carolina's in. So the Jets made the right move. Move on. It hasn't worked out. Fresh start both sides, and get a guy who's on the beginning of a rookie contract. It was all around the right move. It hasn't worked out yet. And anybody who thinks they have a legitimate analysis on Zach Wilson yet, stop.
No, you're right. You're right.
You can't make judgments off of this.
No, and not only can you make a judgment off of what he's done with the Jets, you can't make a judgment what he did at BYU. People, you and I have gotten in this debate. He folded against, top competition. I forget, was it Coastal Carolina they played last year in a COVID year? And he didn't have a great game. But it's like, at the end of the day, what BYU asked him to do on offense was run the offense. And when I say run the offense, it wasn't run the play they gave him. It was handle the entire offense. They had some decent players on the offensive line, okay guys at skill positions, but if you put them in a Power 5 conference, they're just kind of mediocre guys. So it's kind of a situation where you're asking a guy who was put in a position to be the team. He was asked to be the BYU Cougars. Now you're asking him to be the New York Jets.
And you can't ask a rookie quarterback to do that.
You can't ask anybody outside of the all-time greats to do that. And even if you ask those all-time greats, what would they do to their career? But you ask out Sam Darnold to be the New York Jets. Like I said, you watch that compilation. I stumbled across it on TikTok just randomly. I wasn't even searching for it. But all 4 of his interceptions, last week, they were not on him. He was trying to create something, and his skill position guys were not in a position to catch the ball. These were plays that were not on him. Those were 4 interceptions. You look at the stat sheet, it's like, holy crap. A rookie quarterback threw 4 interceptions? No. Your guys who are tasked to catch the ball did not do their job. They either did not run the correct route, or they let the ball bounce off their hands, or they let the defender get position on them. It's just an unfortunate position, like we talked about. Would you rather draft your quarterback now and pray to the love of God that he's still manageable and fixable within 3 to 4 years? Or would you rather, potentially draft a guy in the later rounds, or hold on to Darnold and build a team first before drafting a guy? It's something Jets fans are going to wonder about over the next few years for sure.
No, it's an absolute mess, but again, you can't make any judgments on Zach Wilson right now.
No, you just can't. You can't.
One person I think you can make some judgments about, because he's in a much better, Mac Jones. Okay, I'm starting to think Pro Football Reference is lying, because I just mentioned how Zach Wilson's middle name is Capono. It is claiming that Mac
It's
Jones.
what? It's what?
Capono.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. It's claiming that Mac Jones' real name is Michael McCorkle Jones.
Oh yeah, no, I knew that for sure. I'm
Really?
surprised you didn't know that. You didn't know it was McCorkle?
No.
No, I'm surprised we ever brought that up on the podcast. No, please
And
proceed.
and and
Stephen
there were
Ellis.
talks of him going third overall, and his name is McCorkle.
McCorkle. More like
Oh God.
McSuckle.
Mac Jones has been a very interesting one so far because the first two games, they were in games where they had it controlled. The run game was going.
Pause. I like how you skipped over Justin Fields and Trey Lance and went straight to McCorkle. So go ahead with McCorkle.
Oh, we talked about Justin Fields for 20 minutes.
Well, I want to hear it. I want to hear McCorkle slander. Let's go for it. I just want to say McCorkle one more time.
Okay. You said you wanted to say McCorkle one more time?
I want to say McCorkle one more time. I've got McCorkle.
I don't blame you for wanting to say McCorkle one more time. All right.
What an idiot names the Matt. Go ahead.
God, it's
Go
horrible.
ahead with McCorkle. It's
the first two games, the run game was moving nicely. The defense controlled the games. He didn't have to throw the ball a whole lot. It was controlled, easy throws, on time, on target. He McCorkled that game, and Mac Jones in that situation can succeed. It's controlled environments. Sure. It's
McCorkle can succeed.
Yeah. Get the ball out quick, on time, on target. But against New Orleans? No. Okay. Yeah. Against New Orleans,
they did play more.
However.
Yep, they did play this last week.
Yes. They asked a lot out of him. He threw the ball 51 times. They treated him
not ideal.
Like Aaron Rodgers, and what happened? He was a turnover machine.
It sure was.
And that is what I kept saying about Mac Jones is, yes, in a perfect that's what I kept saying about McCorkle, is when McCorkle is able to McCorkle in a great environment, then his McCorkling will be successful. At Alabama, he was never pressured, and he had wide open targets constantly. And here in New England, throughout two games, it was controlled games where all he had to do was deliver the ball on time, on target, no more than 10 yards out. When you ask more of him, he's never had to do that before.
Sure.
That's what I got so far.
No, and that's the thing with Mac is it's like you and I are ready to overdose on some Benadryl and just end it all on some allergy medication, on some Zyrtec, and just get rid of this facade of a fantasy we're living in when we thought Mac Jones was being taken, number 3 overall. Mac is the kind of guy, ironically enough, he's a Patriot quarterback, but they're not in a position right now to let him succeed. Mac is and I hate this word, I hate this word, or this saying rather, in football, the game manager title. Yeah. Every quarterback's a game manager, for crying out loud. They manage the game. But, however, as much as I say that, Mac Jones is the epitome of that. McCorkle, he's not going to do things on his own. At Alabama, people forget this. He started the same year Tua was taken in the top, 15 or whatever, to the Dolphins. Mac Jones started the last 2 or 3 games. He played against my Michigan Wolverines in the Citrus Bowl. He played against Auburn. He played against I forget who else in the second half when Tua got hurt. Mac Jones, those several games had Devontae Smith, Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Waddle, Najee Harris. He had a heck of a great stable of backs and wide receivers, man. It was the most talented team in college football. You think about the year they won the national championship here 2 years ago. He had Devontae Smith, won the Heisman, had Joel Billingsley, who's going to be a first-round pick as a tight end in this upcoming draft, had Najee Harris. He was not lacking weapons. He had the best offensive line in college football.
The best
Mac
weapons in
Jones
college
is the
football.
guy. Mac Jones is the guy when we're talking, and not to bring it back to Zach Wilson, but we're talking about the Jets building a team, maybe potentially first before inserting the quarterback. Mac Jones is the kind of guy you insert after you built the team.
Yeah.
The Patriots
yeah.
have a lot of questions. They don't have a lot of talent at the skill positions. They've got a decent stable running backs, not elite. They just went out and signed Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. Two of the probably top 15 tight ends in football, but they don't really have anything at wide receiver. Nelson Aguilar is not elite. Kendrick Bourne is not elite. You got a lot of questions at these skill position places. And, when you're asking a rookie guy like Mac Jones to come in and run an offense without elite playmakers, it's a tall task. He doesn't have a cannon for an arm. He doesn't have a really sharp mind as far as processing reads and things. What he is going to do, however, is ask you whatever you ask him within one or two reads, he's going to deliver that. When it gets outside of that, he's having to make something happen with his feet, or he's having to get to his third, fourth, fifth progression. It's not going to happen. That's the biggest issue in that.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I think he's definitely somebody who needs to be in a great situation. Not much is asked out of him, and in that situation, he can deliver a ball on time and on target when it's not far down the field. He can do that. He can. Well, I know. Again, we don't love the term, but he can manage a game in a controlled environment. But to go off script, no.
Exactly.
To create something out of nothing, no.
It's funny, the teams I kind of think of Mac being a success in isn't New England. Ironically enough, it's kind of like these places like Denver, even Tennessee, places like that where they have talent around them. And not saying Mac would ever go there. That's not what we're saying at all, guys. But these are the kind of teams that Mac would succeed in. You've got a nice stable of skill weapons in Denver. You've got, elite guys like A.J. Brown, Julio Jones in Tennessee. That's the situation, not the guys. He's not going to Tennessee or Denver. Don't think that for a second. But that's the kind of situation Mac needs to succeed. Is he needs these elite wide receivers like A.J. Brown, Julio Jones. That situation in Tennessee or in Denver. Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton. Noah Fant, Javonte Williams. And then that elite defense. He needs a situation where he can succeed. New England is fine, but it's not great. They don't have those same weapons as those style of teams have. They don't have the weapons. They don't have the weapons, and they don't have the defense potentially as a team like Denver would to kind of surround him and protect him from the mistakes he will potentially make as a rookie. So that's the situation he needs. New England, it seems like they're kind of forcing their successor to Tom Brady in, and we'll see on Mac Jones. Right now, it doesn't seem like he's going to be elite by any means.
Well, the first two games, it didn't seem that way to me. He didn't have to try to play hero ball. It was controlled. The run game was working well. The defense was playing well, and he didn't have to do a lot. And he played well. But the third game is where you asked him to play hero ball, like what Zach Wilson's having to do every game, and it was a disaster.
Yeah. Well, and that's the issue, man, is when you take away the run game, what do we got? When you take away the run game, you take away the control of the clock, and it's something my grandfather and people his age say is, if you control the clock, if you win the time of possession battle, you're going to win the game. Well, not anymore. But in that game, it was the case. When you take away the run game, you do not win the time of possession battle. You are putting your defense back on the field over and over and over again.
Yeah.
You're putting a guy like Mac Jones in position to play from behind when he can only play to his strengths when they're winning the game. Yeah. When they're not in a close battle, you cannot put Mac Jones in a position to make up a deficit. You have to put him in a position to build on a lead. And that's the kind of issue they ran into, is when the running game could not get established, the defense was constantly turning, or the defense rather was constantly coming back onto the field. Mac Jones was constantly put in a position to put the team on his back. He's a rookie. He's not an elite passer. He's not an elite quarterback. He's not going to be. And you put the game on him. So that's kind of the issue what we see with Mac. And the one point I like to make, and I'm sure you probably agree with this because you and I have talked about it, I know in fact you agree with it. Mac Jones has reached his ceiling. What Mac Jones is now is what he's going to be. He doesn't have elite physical traits. He's not going to get better at what he is. The only thing Matt could potentially ever get better at is going to the weight room in the summer, shedding bad weight, adding good weight, maybe adding 5 to 10 yards on his deep pass. But you're not going to see an elite development out of him to be a read option quarterback, to be a RPO quarterback, to be a consistent deep threat quarterback like an Aaron Rodgers kind of guy.
Yeah.
What he's going to be at his best is the same quarterback he is now, with maybe 5 to 10 yards more of an arm, hitting these guys in stride 40, 50 yards down the field instead of 30, 40, and then being more in shape to withstand the NFL defense. But he is what he is. And that's kind of what you get with a guy like him, is you've got to have that elite team around him to put him in the position to succeed, because he is what he is.
Let me share something. I mentioned this, it might have been our introductory episode. But
Sure.
Going into this last draft, I really loved this draft. There being 5 quarterbacks that people were high on, and had all kinds of different rankings. I decided to watch a lot of tape, and I broke down this quarterback evaluation sheet. I'm going to share it now. So there are 8 qualities. And this is in order of my personal opinion on what I like out of a quarterback, these 8 qualities in order. The it factor, which is funny that it's number 1, because some people wonder if it even exists. It's just,
it does.
It's a special thing. It's the kind of thing that these guys, when it's Aaron Rodgers against the 49ers with 37 seconds left, they just make it happen, man. And you can't evaluate it with numbers. It's something that you see, and it just happens. They just got it, and there's no getting around it. Football IQ. Go ahead.
No. I was just saying with the it factor, it's the difference between Teddy Bridgewater and a Brett Favre.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've got similar skill sets, but you just see it. The it factor is definitely a real thing, and the team generally rallies behind it. So completely agree with that. Go ahead.
Yeah. And this is something that I think people get confused. Football IQ it's not real world IQ. It's not how smart a guy is. It's football knowledge, because you can increase your football IQ. It's not a set level.
Agreed.
So it's who's the most familiar with the ins and outs, the deep portions of football, like I have here. Intangibles is the non-playing stuff, the leadership, the winning, the dedication, studiousness and work ethic.
Yeah, and you kind of see that like we talked about with like football IQ, like you brought up, and then even number 3 with the intangibles. You and I have talked about this playing in different basketball tournaments over the years, rec league stuff. There's guys who can play basketball, and there's guys who know how to play basketball, and that's the thing with football. Is there's guys who can play football, and there's guys who know how to play. What the difference is, like we just railed on Justin Fields and Mac Jones for the last 30 minutes. Those guys play football. Guys like, we didn't even touch on him, but guys like Trey Lance, even I hate to even put him on this level, but Zach Wilson, they know how to play football. They're gamers, kind of like what you said. And I know you're not as high on Zach Wilson, so I'm not even going to really harp on him, but kind of guys in that mold. There's guys who play football, and there's guys who know how to play football.
Yeah,
and the difference is you're doing what the coaching staff says to do, and there's guys who know where to go with the football. The same way in basketball, you know what's going to come off a pick and roll. Whereas if you don't know how to play basketball, you're just waiting for that action to happen. So there's definitely a difference. Completely agree with you.
Yeah, it's like when relating to basketball, when a guy cuts, a guy who knows how to play basketball throws the ball before the guy's open.
He's going to see it before it happens. Same way in football, you're going to see that route breaking open. We saw it last week, the 49ers, Aaron Rodgers and George Kittle. A guy who knows how to play football realizes Jair Alexander, even though he's out of his zone, could potentially break on that ball like we saw. A guy who just plays football is going to throw the pass that Jimmy threw that ended up resulting in an interception because he sees the routes open, he takes it instead of knowing what's potentially going to happen. And that's kind of
the other guy sees once it is open and tries to rifle it in.
Exactly.
Yes.
The guy who knows how to play football sees it before it happens. The guy who just plays, sees it after it's already developed.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course, everybody knows what accuracy is, so I didn't feel the need to try to
Exactly.
explain it.
Accuracy is accuracy.
So for me, the top 4 are my most important. So I gave them the same amount
Sure.
of point values, and we'll see. I have a chart above. So those are the top
Sure.
4 for me. The next 2, play extending, of course, is escaping from a broken pocket, and creative is something out of nothing. Dynamic factor, here I have elusiveness when carrying the ball.
Yeah.
So that, and then of course, you know what, athleticism and throwing power, you don't need me to explain what those are.
And
Anybody
if
who's
you
ever
don't
watched
mind,
football knows. Go ahead.
yeah, and I'll interject on number 6. I would even add to your dynamic factor not only carrying the ball, but even in the pocket, eluding pressure would be
Yeah,
a great
true.
one to kind of add to that dynamic factor. There's a lot of quarterbacks. You think about Tom Brady, doesn't have wheels, but he has that dynamic factor because he eludes pressure consistently in the pocket with
Very
with
true.
his footwork. He moves around in the pocket consistently without turning it downfield. So definitely dynamic factor, not only turning it out, carrying the ball for a positive game, but even just kind of moving around within the pocket, staying within that protection to deliver the ball downfield.
Yeah, definitely so. So if I scroll up, you can see the top 4 I gave, they're worth 15 points. I view those as the most valuable in
Sure.
my opinion. The next 2 are 12 points, slightly less. Next 2 are 8 points. So you can see there's a difference in my opinion of value there.
Yeah.
Question on the screen, can you see this box here? Is there,
Yeah, I mean, I see your box with your evaluation for sure, with all the different
okay.
quarterbacks. I see that.
Okay, on my screen it shows me and you, has the little boxes. I didn't know if it was covering the screen for you.
Yeah. Nope, you're good.
Okay,
Yep, I see
good,
you. I
good,
see Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones.
very good.
Yeah.
So this was before the draft. Obviously, you can see I'm a homer and I have Trey Lance with the best grade. You're thinking, wow, what a homer. But let me break it down real quick. Let me go through the it factor.
And
Go
to
ahead,
the
go ahead.
viewers, this list was shared with me probably a month or two before there was ever any reports that Trey Lance was potentially the guy
That's
at number
true.
3.
Yes.
So this was
Yes.
Steve's list. Back when I thought potentially Zach Wilson might be number 3.
Yeah.
Obviously that didn't end up being, but this was Steve's list legitimately right around the time of the trade up to number 3.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll do Trey since I'm a Trey guy. The it factor. He didn't play at a big school, so I understand if you question
Sure.
this. But the dude had 42 touchdowns and no interceptions and went
Doesn't matter where you
undefeated and
are.
won the championship. So I gave him a 12 out of 15. It would probably be 15 out of 15 if he did that at a Division I school. But because it's at a D2, I gave him that. But still, based off what he did there, the dude won games. He played fantastic on the biggest stages.
Sure did.
Now here's where people might be thrown off because he's viewed as a really raw guy. But the football IQ and intangibles, I got a 14 out of 15. You're thinking, whoa, step back, calm down. But this guy, what he was asked to do from the North Dakota State coaching staff, he's the only guy out of these 5 guys who consistently had to call protections, call audibles at the line of scrimmage,
Yeah.
and was really involved in play calling like a professional NFL quarterback was. None of these other guys had to do that. I think he's
No,
got
and
experience doing that.
no, and especially the only guy even close to it was Zach Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
And you've used the term backyard football. I think it's a little unfair, but it's not far from the truth. Zach Wilson was asked to create, I would use the term something out of nothing. Trevor
Yeah.
Lawrence, Justin Fields, Mac Jones were all asked to deliver the offense that
Yeah.
Tony Elliott called at Clemson for Trevor Lawrence, that Ryan Day called for Justin Fields at Ohio State, and Steve Sarkisian called at Alabama for Mac Jones.
Yeah.
So if you're going to break it down, like you said, Trey Lance is the only guy who was asked to create really something out of nothing, and to kind of handle the offense in that regard. A lot of the other guys, those 3 out of the other 5, excluding Zach Wilson, were
Mm-hmm.
asked to deliver the football where their offensive coordinator / head coach told them to deliver it to, and weren't asked to create anything out of that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And he did a great job with it.
Definitely
He
did.
he ran the offense like a 10-year veteran NFL quarterback, and he's the only guy that did it quite to that level. And that amazing
He did.
story of during the COVID year when he couldn't play, every week he prepared for an NFL defense like he was already drafted and going to
Yeah.
play him that week. I love that. That's the type of
Yep.
guy I think he is, and that's why I also
I
have a
agree.
14 in intangibles. Not only because of what I just that he is just studious, wants to be great. He does his research. He works hard. He works his butt off. And I think he's one of those guys who the guy I think might be the best in the league at this, other than Tom Brady, might be Dak Prescott, who, he's not the most natural, pure thrower. He wasn't super accurate coming out. But when the guy walks in a locker room, people look his direction. And that's why everybody in the Cowboys organization only has 10 out of 10 things to say about the guy. I think Trey Lance has that kind of presence.
Yeah, and I don't think you're far off. I almost compare him to Russell Wilson a little bit more than
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Dak Prescott in that regard. Just because think about Russell Wilson, he came out of NC State and then to Wisconsin,
Hmm.
transferred, played there too. He started at NC State, started at Wisconsin, led them to Rose Bowl berth. It's kind of the same thing with Trey Lance. He kind of flown under the radar the same way Russell Wilson did. The Seahawks took Russell Wilson. People didn't think anything about it. In fact, they got him a blank on the guy that the Seahawks signed. Matt Flynn was who they signed to be their starter, and Russell Wilson beat him out as a rookie.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the intangibles you see with Trey Lance in that regard, as far as kind of capturing the locker room. Not to read too much into the social media stuff, but you do see a lot of guys kind of being like Trey's my guy, Trey area, whatever.
Yeah.
It does seem like he's kind of got the command of the locker room already.
Yeah. And even that story that they can track how much film guys are watching on the iPad and Trey Lance is number one. I like that too.
Yeah,
It didn't
no,
surprise me at all.
no,
'Cause that's
and
the type of
one
guy
thing
he
I'll
is.
mention before, and one thing I'll mention before we move on. It was funny last Sunday night, even though Niners lost the Packers. Every time they cut to Trey Lance and Chris Collinsworth was talking about basically, Chris Collinsworth is basically pleading for the Kyle Shanahan to put Trey Lance in the game. You look at Trey Lance, every time Jimmy went to the huddle,
Hmm.
because the 49ers still huddle, they do a lot of stuff from the sideline to kind of go with the offense where they call it from the sideline, but they do a lot of stuff from the huddle. Trey Lance
Yeah.
every time was checking his quarterback sheet on his wrist.
Yeah.
It was very interesting. Every time they called the play, Trey Lance was standing next to the offensive play caller, not the offensive coordinator, but the guy giving the signals from the sideline. I don't know who
Hmm.
his name is, but Trey Lance was checking his sheet and on his wristband and comparing it with the guy giving the signals from the sideline. So very interesting. Like you're talking about intangibles. A guy who, even though he's not in the game, has his helmet on, which is underrated, which means he's ready to go. And he's
Hmm.
constantly checking his wristband every single play
Yeah.
before he goes in the game, just to make
He's that
sure
type
that
of
he
guy,
understands.
man.
Yeah, just to make sure that he knows what the play being called is. So when his number's called, he's ready to rock and roll.
Yeah. So, and this is a big four. This is one of the 15 values, accuracy. I got him the worst of the five because I think
Sure.
in the 2019 season, there were a lot of high throws. I mean, he throws some inaccurate passes. He's had a year off to work on that, so I'm curious what it'll be like when he really sees action. Because in the
Yep.
preseason, he had a couple that made you look,
Hmm.
kind of. Ugh. But for the most part, he was pretty accurate in the preseason, and everything I saw in camp was pretty good. So maybe he's improved with that. But the last time we saw him in real football live action, I think he was the least accurate of these five guys.
Yeah,
So
and it's probably just something. His mechanics don't look like they're far from being off. It's
yeah,
something definitely fixable. It appears to be
definitely.
something more of not as much as a mental thing, but is more of a mechanical thing as far as knocking off
I agree.
rust. Now, if this is something, if and when Trey does start, and we're still seeing it after 2 or 3 games where he's playing the majority of the snaps, then it's something to worry about. But right now, it looks like it's just rust that he's knocking off
Yeah,
from not playing. And people forget too the one and only game he played during the 2020 collegiate COVID season where teams like Michigan only played 6 games, teams like Alabama only played 8 games. North Dakota State only played 1 game, and it was basically a showcase for Trey Lance, and he didn't have a great game then. And that's the last competition he had before he declared for the NFL draft. So not terribly something to worry about, but I do completely agree with you that the sample size we have, he wasn't incredibly accurate.
Yeah. And Josh Allen coming out as far as accuracy was worse than Trey Lance. So it can be changed. Dak Prescott was not accurate coming out. That's something you can work on. I think it's a mechanical thing too. Okay. Play extending and dynamic factor kind of go hand in hand. The reason I have him as an 8 out of 12 in play extending is because I think at times that lack of accuracy, I had to give the edge to Zach Wilson's the best at this, in my opinion. Throws on the run. He can sling it when running to his right or the left. Did a great job at it with BYU. That was his game. 12 out of 12. I could give Zach Wilson 12 out of 12, honestly. But I don't think I gave anybody max anything. It's hard to do that. And dynamic factor, I described it as carrying the ball. Obviously, he's fantastic at that. He's fast, he's big, he's strong, and you can watch him and tell that he knows how to carry the football. So, and he's great at it. And then, of course, athleticism. He's top notch at that. Again, he's big, strong, fast, and throwing power. I think he's got the strongest arm in this class.
I think he does too.
I really do. And you can't take a lot from pro days, but man, at his pro day, there were some deep posts and outs that dude lasered in. I mean, whew. I know I got an even split for throwing power almost all the way across the board. And it's really, I think Trey Lance I think he has the strongest arm in this class, but I didn't want to give him an 8 out of 8, but I didn't want to drop the other guys to 6. It was a tough thing.
No, that's the funny thing, man, is you made this list before there was ever any indication that the Niners were taking Trey Lance. It was kind of a hope and a dream for you. And
it was.
After that looked like the Jets were taking Zach Wilson, Trey Lance became my guy as well. And, if I could do it over again, he would have been my guy from the jump. So I completely agree with you. Based on that, I don't think that was a biased projection. I think he's definitely 8 out of 8 on throwing power. That's probably the one place I disagree with you. I think he's got the best arm in the draft as far as pure strength goes.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I don't think I have time to break down each and every one of these guys to that depth, but essentially, Trey Lance was the guy that I thought, as crazy it is coming from a D2 school, he's my favorite guy. I had Lawrence and Fields kind of right there. I'm starting to question that. Zach Wilson, just a notch before those guys. And then Big Mac. A 55 might be low, but I just did not watch his, I told this to Luke, who, was our guest this week, and he's a big Alabama fan. I told him I wasn't high on Mac, so what I decided to do was I'm just going to watch his highlights because everybody looks good in highlights. I watched the guy's highlights, and I was so underwhelmed, even in the freaking highlights.
Yeah, I was higher on Jalen Hurts, man.
Right.
Thing with Mac Jones is like he had the best core of wide receivers any collegiate quarterback's ever had for his first 3 starts. Was that a redshirt junior? I believe he was a 6-year player when he came out as a redshirt senior. So when he did come out, losing Henry Ruggs, losing
Jerry
Jeudy. Thank you. Well, you still had Jalen Waddle. You still had Devontae Smith. You still had Jaleel Billingsley. You still had Najee Harris. So he had a lot of talent. It just seemed like it was one of those things where you deliver the ball where we ask you, don't do anything more than that. Don't go nuts. And that's where Mac shined. It was funny when I'll try not to ramble on Mac too much, but when he was in college, the funny thing people were talking about against Auburn, it was his second start. after Tua got hurt and broke his hip against Mississippi State here in 2019 or whatever. Mac had 2 or 3 interceptions that game and didn't play great. And then he came back and Bama almost had a chance to win that game. But the issue Mac had is when he tried to create too much. As I said before from the outset, when you put Mac in a position around an elite defensive team, around elite playmakers, basically what we're looking at is the Super Bowl 49ers team. If you put Mac in that position, he's going to succeed. He's probably going to be better than Jimmy Garoppolo was with that team. But what he's not going to do is win you the Super Bowl single-handedly. He's not going to do that for you, and that's the issue I've got with Mac.
I put it this way: so Zach Wilson looks like a disaster with the Jets right now. If Mac Jones was on this current Jets, it'd be the worst thing you ever seen in your life.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt.
It'd be the worst thing you ever seen. So here's one last exercise. We were considering doing a team building exercise, but we've spent like an hour doing this already. But I want to do one quick exercise before we go. Looking at the top 10, we're 3, well, except for Jacksonville, we're 3 games in the season. But I want to redraft the top 10 with me and you as the GM of every team.
Let's do it.
All right. Number 1, Jacksonville. Who are you taking now that we're 3 weeks in?
I think you're still taking Trevor Lawrence just because of the situation you're in. I know I've railed on him a good bit. I don't know how you don't take him, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You can't be the guy that passes on Trevor Lawrence, and not that he's going to be legit. I really think in any other situation, he probably won't be. And he might not be in this situation, but you can't not take a quarterback with number 1 if you're Jacksonville. I mean, who realistically, Steve, who do you take if it's not Trevor Lawrence? If it's not a quarterback,
do
you take Patrick Surtain? Do you take Mike Parsons? Do you take Penei Sewell or Rashawn Slater? No, you don't, you idiot.
No,
you have to take a quarterback.
Yeah.
You have to take a quarterback, number 1. And if you're going to take a quarterback, if it's going to be a flyer, you might as well take one on the guy that people anointed the next Peyton Manning.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm writing this down as we go. I have him number 1 too.
Whether or not he becomes that, I don't know. But
you got to try.
You can't not make that.
Agreed. Totally agree. The Jets is a really tough one for me.
Really? All right, I want to see who you got first before I make my call.
Shoot, I was hoping you went first, but okay, I'll think about it. If I were the GM, so let me tell you my thought process. I considered passing on a quarterback and saying, let's commit I almost said, let's commit to being horrid this year, but next year's class is not good.
That's the thing, is if you don't take quarterback this year, you're not taking one next year. Exactly. You're banking on 2023.
Yeah, and that's why it pains me so bad. But if I was the GM, the guy I like the most is Trey Lance.
Yeah, that's honestly where I'm at too. Trey Lance is the most NFL-ready quarterback in the draft, in my opinion, over Trevor Lawrence. Based on the offense they ran at North Dakota State.
Exactly.
It probably ruins his career going to the Jets, but I do think you've got to go Trey Lance at number 2 just based on the ceiling. And like you said, if you pass on a quarterback this year, it's kind of the argument I was making earlier, not to go off the rails too much, but we've already done that.
Yeah.
If you pass on Justin Fields this year, right, and you trade back, or you take a Surtain or a Parsons or a Slater or a Sewell, you're banking on sucking for the next 2 to 3 years. You're not taking a quarterback till 2023 at the earliest, because your answer is not Sam Howell, Spencer Rattler. We'll get to that in the offseason. You and I have strong opinions about those horrid guys, but but you're going to be tanking for a while. And that's the thing is, do you want to take the quarterback now and then build the team later, or do you want to build a team now and take the quarterback later? So I think you got to go Trey Lance, just because
Yeah.
whatever you got to take the quarterback when you've got him.
Yeah.
And I don't fault them for taking Zach Wilson in reality, but
No,
if we
me
were going to do if we were going to do a redraft, Trey Lance, I think you got to get your franchise guy potentially. Worry about the rest later.
Let's alternate going first. So you went first on
Sure.
1. I went first on 2. So number 3,
Sure, let's do it.
our San Francisco 49ers, Trey Lance is not available. Who do you
Yep.
take?
I'm going Zach Wilson. I think that's the best natural fit in this entire draft. Despite Trey Lance, who I'm higher on, I think Zach Wilson, not just because he's a storm and warming, just like Steve Young. I do think the moxie that he has and the running ability that he has would mesh really well with Kyle Shanahan. It just seems like a natural fit to me, a plug and play guy. That's a guy that if he had been drafted in reality number 3 overall, I do think he would have started from day one. I don't think there's any conversation about that. I think he would have instantly beat out Jimmy Garoppolo. For the starting quarterback spot. So Zach Wilson number 3.
Nice, very nice. I also have Zach Wilson number 3.
Yeah.
For all the reasons you said, it just makes sense there. And I think in a controlled environment like this, Zach Wilson, he would not have 2 touchdowns and 7 picks.
No, he wouldn't. And that's the issue. You know, we talked about not to ramble too much. I know we're going over time, but it's like those 4 picks he had, none of them were on him. His first week, they were all on his weapons. So in a controlled environment where you got an elite running game, in a world where Mostert's not hurt, in a world where Elijah Mitchell's not hurt, in a world where Trey Sermon's getting the proper touches, in a world where Brandon Ayuk is starting over Trent Sherfield in week 1 and 2, Zach Wilson's the guy you want. He's a guy that's going to be just cocky enough to lead the team and lower his shoulder, stand in a guy's face and taunt him a little bit.
Yeah.
And he's going to be the guy that's going to make a stupid play and throw a pick, but he's also going to be the guy that, you know, gets you a win when you need it.
True.
That maybe doesn't have that Packers game in doubt like we saw last week. So I do think that's the natural fit. Now, like I said, in real life, I will clarify this, even though I'm a Zach Wilson fan. Trey Lance, long term, I do think he's a guy. But right now, the natural fit in our mock draft and in the real world scenario, that's why I was high on Zach Wilson. Did seem like he was a plug and play guy.
Yeah, makes sense. Definitely so. Atlanta is interesting. So they picked Kyle Pitts, obviously. And the tactic there was we don't really have a need in particular. So let's take the best. Exactly. Let's take the best player available. I like that tactic.
Sure.
But I'm not going to pick Kyle Pitts because I don't think he's the best player available.
Don't think he is either.
We might have the same pick 4 times in a row. I'm taking Patrick Surtain.
Really? All right.
Yeah.
So I'm going opposite. I'm going defense as well, but I'm going Micah Parsons. Just because, like you said with Surtain, he's right up there too. Cornerback and middle linebacker are the 2 hardest positions to find in the NFL. You've got to draft them. You cannot assign them as free agents. If you do, you're going to overpay every time. So if you can pick either one of them, you're going to be great. I am pretty high on Micah Parsons. I'm just as high on Patrick Surtain. I do feel like, though, with Deion Jones, the ability that Surtain's stuck in my head, that Micah Parsons can give you, not only as a middle linebacker, but he's flexible enough to play outside, not as an edge guy, but outside as a pass coverage linebacker. Yeah, as a pass coverage, and he's flexible enough to actually rush the passer as an edge guy, line up in a 3 tech position. So for me, Micah Parsons, the most flexible defender in the draft, but Surtain, arguably the best defensive back. Not even arguably, he is the best, defensive back in the draft.
I just say get you a lockdown corner, man. He's been fantastic. But Micah Parsons is a monster. So.
No, and that's the thing is if you have the opportunity to draft, especially the way the NFL is going, as far as 4-2-5, which is basically. It used to be 2 defensive tackles, 2 defensive ends, 2 linebackers, 5 deep backs. Now what it is basically 2 defensive linemen, 2 outside linebackers, 2 interior linebackers, and 5 defensive backs. You've got to get, like you said, you're either going cornerback or linebacker. To me, I do have Parsons' value just a little bit higher just because of the impact he can give you in the middle. And it just seems like a natural fit for Atlanta. But, Surtain, no doubt, he's a shutdown corner, and he's going to be off the board pretty soon for me too. So
very nice. Cincinnati. So they picked Jamar Chase, which when they did it, I had complaints about. Who do you take here?
So it's tough for me because you and I have done these drafts off air, and I've picked a different guy, I think, every time. So it's hard for me to think about, especially on the spot. But I think I still go a weapon, and I don't go Jamar Chase despite the Joe Burrow connection. I go the best offensive player in the draft, including quarterbacks, and that player is Devontae Smith.
Ooh, nice.
He's the best wide receiver in this draft. He's the best skill position player in this draft. He's the best offensive player in this draft. If you're going to go a weapon, you should pick the best wide receiver in this draft. And I think the value he gives you over Jamar Chase, over God Almighty, Kadarius Toney, Rashad Bateman, Kyle Pitts, you take Devontae freaking Smith. I don't care about his size. I don't care about anything else. The guy gets open. He catches everything that's thrown his way. And if you're determined to take a skill guy, you take the best player in the draft, in my opinion. And Devontae Smith, as long as he stays healthy, he's going to be on a good track to be one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, no, I like Devontae Smith a little more. And I think if Devontae Smith is on a team where they're not going to throw the ball much. I mean, Jalen Hurts, you don't trust him like you do Joe Burrow.
No, you don't.
So
you don't. That's why I took him there.
That being said, honestly, it seems like a match made in heaven. And I'm still going to go Jamar Chase, actually, which when me and you have talked off air, I've never said before. I've always said I like Smith better or Penei Sewell because their offensive line is bad. But watching them, they seem like they are a match made in heaven. So I'm sticking with it.
They are. And, on paper, you're right. Jamar Chase, number 5, doesn't hurt anything at all. That 1 year together they had, that was awesome. It was amazing. But for me, I do have Devontae Smith a little bit higher, and any potential learning curve that comes during the offseason, I think is negated by the fact that Joe Burrow would realize that Devontae Smith is the best offensive player he's ever played with. But Jamar Chase is right up there too, man. He's Devontae Smith is a gamer. Jamar Chase is a physical specimen.
Totally agree.
And he's an elite athlete. So there's your difference.
Yeah, Devontae Smith is still my favorite receiver in the draft.
Devontae Smith is an elite wide receiver, and Jamar Chase is an elite athlete.
Totally agree. Yeah. And Smith is my favorite, which is why I have Miami taking him at 6 with the next pick instead of Waddle.
Really. So I'm gonna reverse you. I got Jamar Chase at number 6.
Okay.
Just because the best wide receiver available. Give Tua somebody to work with. Obviously, if Devontae had fallen to 6, that's a better fit for me than Jalen Waddle. Just the overall dynamic, especially when Jarvis Landry's over the hill. They don't have anybody else, But Jamar Chase in my head with what's left on the board. In real life, they should have taken Devontae Smith.
Totally agree. Yep. Totally agree.
Jalen Waddle is a complimentary receiver after you have a Devontae Smith. He is not somebody you take over Devontae Smith.
Yep, totally agree. We messed up the order somehow. I don't know. Whatever. It's your turn to go first, right?
All right. Yep. We're at pick number 7.
Who did I skip?
Who did you skip?
Detroit, Carolina. Oh, on my list, I accidentally skipped Denver. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, gotcha. So we did the
Miami.
Jags.
So now
we did Jags,
Lions.
Bengals, Niners.
Jags, Jets, Niners, Falcons, Bengals, Dolphins. So now it's the Lions.
All right, so now it's the lines. I think you still got to go Panay Sewell.
I
That's a great
agree.
pick to me. I think they got the best value at that pick.
Me too.
Left tackle the future. If you lose Taylor Decker in free agency, you've got a guy who can flex either position. And whatever quarterback you build in the future, you got the best offensive tackle probably prospected in the last 5 years. So
Yeah, right.
it's great pick to me.
I agree. I'm going to take Sewell here too for the exact same. I think it's a great fit, great pick, great player, and I love the spot. Carolina. So they took J.C. Horn here, who me and you both thought was a little overrated coming to the draft. He played good in the 3 games he got to play in before he broke his foot. He's out for the year. So it's kind of, I feel a little dirty. He got hurt, so it's hard to tell. But I'm still going to go out on a limb and say the guy who has performed fantastic in Los Angeles at a position of need, Rashawn Slater here.
Sure. And here's where I'm going to go. Patrick Surtain. He's coming off the board for me. If you're going to take a lockdown corner, take the best cornerback in the draft.
Totally agree.
Arguably between him and Micah Parsons, best defensive player in the draft. It's a flip flop. You could flop either of these guys from. I had Parsons going to Atlanta. You could have Parsons going to Carolina, Surtain going to Atlanta, like you did. It's a great fit either way. Both of these guys, and in my mind, the issue with in IRL with JC Horn is they fell in love with the statistics that he gave you in the pre-draft workouts and in the combine. And that never does anybody any favors. You see this all the time in the NBA, you see it all the time in the NFL, is whatever narrative we had about this guy all season, we're going to throw away for 2 weeks of combine numbers. And combine numbers don't mean crap because they don't practice in pads, they don't practice in cleats, they don't practice in helmets. So what the crap does it matter when a guy like when John Ross III runs a 4.240 and then can't catch the ball? It doesn't matter because he's running in tights in a shirt. It is not game speed. Jabril Peppers ran Michigan all-time great Heisman runner-up, ran a 4.9 or 4.52, and everyone's like, oh, he's slow. Watch him in game speed, you idiot. He's the fastest player on the field. It's not even close.
That's how I felt about Adoree Jackson, man.
That's exactly the guy I was going to name second to that.
Oh, sweet.
It does not matter what they run in a 4.4, what they run in a 40-yard dash, whether they run a 4.4 or not. Watch their game speed. Adoree Jackson and Jabril Peppers were clearly the fastest guys on the field, no matter who they played.
Yep.
So what are you doing?
Totally agree.
It's the same situation in this regard. These combine numbers don't mean anything. Same thing with JC Horn. Combine numbers don't mean crap. It's what you do on the field. And he was a fine prospect on the field, late first round, second round pick if combine numbers didn't mean anything, but definitely not over Patrick Surtain. No way.
Totally agree. So this is an interesting one. The team that picked Patrick Surtain, Denver, which that was a match made in heaven. He fits with that secondary so nicely. He's been great. Who do you take now that the guy's gone, man?
So for me, I'm going Greg Newsome from Northwestern.
Okay,
I'm
love
high
Greg
on
Newsome,
him.
man. He's playing great.
He's playing great. To me, he's he's right there behind Parsons and Surtain as far as the best defensive players in the draft. He's just one notch behind him, in my opinion. Watch what he did in the Big Ten championship game last year against Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Justin Fields. He shut them down, man. If Northwestern had any identity outside of their defense and run game management, and the quarterback, they would have won that game. Obviously, they ended up losing, but Greg Newsome did an awesome job. And that wasn't just one game. That was a one-game fluke. He did that all year. He's done that his whole career. He's a beast. And if you can't get Surtain in this situation, give you a guy outside of the Fuller bro, a guy who's going to fortify your backfield outside of Justin Simmons and Kyle Fuller. Give you a guy in Greg Newsome who's going to start opposite that and is going to give you legit, probably the best defensive backfield in the AFC West.
This is a tough one because I wanted to do the same thing and pick a corner, but then I realized that the guy who is probably too good to go here, not that I want to change my pick.
Sure.
But I'm going to go Micah Parsons because he's available.
Yep. If he's
just
on the board,
fantastic defensive player for a defensive-based identity team.
Yeah, no. You and I have talked ad nauseum when we've done our mock drafts and things and our team building exercises. Denver doesn't really have anybody at linebacker. Von Miller is no longer a linebacker; he's an edge. So I think you got to take Mike Parsons there if you got the opportunity.
I totally agree. Philadelphia is an interesting one, and
Sure is.
so they took Devontae Smith here, which I like. But I say you have a running quarterback. I like Dallas Goedert. Let's go ahead and commit to a jumbo style package, run 2 tight ends with Dallas Goedert and Kyle Pitts.
That's where I'm at, man. I'm glad you took the words out of my mouth. Kyle Pitts is still on the board for me.
Oh, nice. I didn't realize that.
So Kyle Pitts is going to the Philadelphia Eagles in my mock draft. For the same reasons you said. I feel like Dallas Goedert, although he's kind of a possession receiver, he's a better run blocker than Kyle Pitts. Let Kyle Pitts stretch the field vertically. And honestly, in this mock draft, I've got Devontae and Jamar Chase off the board. I think Kyle Pitts is a better receiver than Jalen Waddle and Rashad Bateman, which would be my next 1 and 2 wide receivers. So just from a receiving standpoint, I'd take Kyle Pitts, and then just as a mismatch he would cause on linebackers and outside defensive linemen, these edge guys. We just talked about Von Miller. Not that he'd ever be matched up against Von Miller cross conference guys, but guys like that. These edge guys, these interior linebackers who are lined up outside. He's a mismatch. So Kyle Pitts at 10 would be my pick.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It'd be a great fit if they committed to that style of offense. It'd be awesome.
Yeah. Just a read option offense.
Yeah, man.
People joke about. And then just one little rant I'd like to make before we conclude. People talk about the RPO offense. The RPO is not an offense. The RPO is a play and a scheme. The same way that they talk about the spread offense as being a type of offense. The spread offense is not a type of offense. The spread offense is a formation. The RPO offense is a formation and a play call. So potentially in our world, where you're talking about Philadelphia Eagles running an RPO offense, that's not a type of offense. What they would be running potentially is a run-heavy, intermediate passing game offense, where you're seeing them take advantage of mismatches. And I don't know, just a pet peeve that I have. You see a lot of these guys in the national media compared to little guys like us with 8 subscribers, which are basically our friends and family, maybe a couple random strangers, where we're just talking about serious stuff like this. But really, just a pet peeve that I have. These spread offenses, when people talk about that, and RPO offenses, it's just a scheme. Spread offenses nowadays is either a spread power run offense, run heavy. We're seeing a lot of collegiate teams run, or a spread air raid offense where you're spreading everybody out, or an RPO offense where you're putting a lot of guys in motion pre-snap, giving the quarterback options to take after the snap. You did see a lot of that in our mock draft and in the real draft, where you saw teams pick players specific to these exact needs, picking to these spread air raid type offenses, spread power type offenses, and these RPO type offenses like we're talking about. The players we picked, I feel like, fit all their needs specifically. Eagles seem like a power heavy team. They're pretty dynamic, and the fits that we gave a lot of these teams inside the top 10, I feel like, are very accurate to the needs that they have. Sorry for the little rant, but when you see guys like Skip Bayless, Max Kellerman, Tim Tebow now, with Skip Bayless talking about running spread offenses and things. Spread offense isn't a thing. What people think about by spread offenses is the Oregon days of old. Hurry up tempo offenses. That's not a thing anymore. Everybody's spread out. So let's just talk about real stuff nowadays, right?
Yeah, for real. Yeah, true. Yeah, good stuff, man. I had fun with all that. Breaking quarterbacks down in that redraft, and we'll have to get on here again soon on an off day for another bonus thing and do that team builder stuff. We love to do that, man.
No doubt.
Yeah. But until next time, we all enjoyed it. And again, check out Josh on his site, jbmwolverine.com. And he writes good stuff for the Wolverines, man. So if you're interested in Michigan football, it's a good source for it.
Yeah, and you're probably not, but hey, just go ahead and click it anyway. I make a couple cents off every click you make, so go ahead and click it up.
Oh man, I'll click it if you want.
Click it up, Steve.
Sweet, will do.
You're my
And
favorite.
I don't have
You're my favorite clickbait.
and I don't have a website or anything, but I have this YouTube channel with 7 subscribers. So
Yeah, it's just me and you and our wives and extended family. So living the dream.
this weird thing about YouTube is it actually won't let you view your subscribers. So I actually don't know who our subscribers are completely. But
We just have to do the math on all of you. So if you're one of our
eliminate
stragglers, and you want
everybody.
to if you want to be on our fan club and you didn't kill Gabby Petito, then message us privately and we'll be sure to send you
Or
a
comment
free 49ers.
on the YouTube video.
Comment.
Yeah.
We're not sending you crap. Forget what I
Our
said.
first
Comment
official
on the page. We'll
commenter.
reply to you.
Yeah, our first official commenter on this page.
Yeah.
I will buy them a
Yeah.
49ers cap.
That's ridiculous. Don't do that.
I already am.
First person who, you're ridiculous. You expect too much out of people. The first person who makes it through an hour and a half of this freaking crap that me and Steve just did, where we were just rambling the entire time, and I busted Urban Meyer. Steve pulled out his own draft analysis spreadsheet, which was awesome. So appropriately titled, I might add. And then I just ran it on RPO and spread offenses because I just felt like throwing it in. Whoever decides to comment first on one of our videos, better yet than buying a 49ers cap, we will reply to you and like your comment. That's what we're going to do for you.
That's the worst thing ever.
We will
suck.
We will title you. We will give you the title as friend of the podcast. If you
call you out
do
too
that.
if you want.
Yeah, we'll say your name. Hey, you know what? Comment. Just leave a comment. We will read your comment live on air.
No one cares if I comment back though. No one cares.
No, I do that all the time. In fact, I just nobody's listening to this anyway. I just wrote an article about previewing Wisconsin, and I had one guy comment and say this writer's an idiot, and I said thank you for your astute analysis. Yeah, so you just gotta. Hey man, it's just part of it. So if you guys want to call us idiots or you want to skip ahead to the end of this video and you have to stumble upon this gem, you want to do it, and we'll be your best friend, man. We really won't be, but we'll at least read your comment on there. So
it's true. Yeah. All right. Well, hey, we enjoyed it. We'll be back with our regular official episode number 5 next week. And we got a fun thing planned for the bye week too, with a couple different guests. So we're looking forward to it. We'll have all of that and more on the San Francisco 49ers and whatever the heck else we decide to ramble about here. 49 Yard Dash Podcast. Peace out, guys.
I've got AIDS.